Welcome, Hunter alums. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this afternoon and kicking off Reunion Weekend 2023. Last year, late in the planning process, we found out that we were able to have Reunion in person. And tomorrow, we are expecting so many more alums to be with us at Reunion. And that caps off a year for the AA that's been characterized by reconnection and re-engagement. At the annual meeting tomorrow, we will report on the highlights of the 2022-2023 fiscal year, what the Alumnae Association accomplished this year, and the AA's financial disposition. We hope that you can participate in person or by Zoom, which you can do by registering for the link on the website, HCHSAA.org.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to introduce our moderator and speaker for the evening on behalf of the Alumni Association Board. So after graduating from Hunter College High School, Irving Kagan, or Mr. Kagan, because he was a teacher when I was in school, earned a Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts degree in history at Yale University. Over the last 32 years, he has enjoyed working with Hunter students in courses in history, international relations, and constitutional law. He has advised the GO, the Washington Seminar, and What's What. He also served as Social Studies Department Chair at Hunter High School. Mr. Kagan has been recognized as an outstanding educator by the University of Chicago, Cornell University, and St. Andrews University. I'm a little upset that Mr. Kagan was never my teacher while at Hunter, as he was and remains a favorite teacher and advisor of many of my classmates. He and his colleagues must have done something right, as many Hunterites have become educators. Thank you for being here and moderating this session, Mr. Kagan. Next, I'd like to introduce Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes grew up in the Bronx and after his Hunter years graduated from Brown University in 2001 with a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. Since 2002, Chris has written on a wide variety of political and social issues, from union organizing and economic democracy to the intersection of politics and technology. His essays, articles, and reviews have appeared in the New York Times Magazine, Time, The Nation, The American Prospect, The New Republic, The Washington Monthly, The Guardian, and The Chicago Reader. Chris is a former fellow at Harvard University's Edmund J. Safra Foundation Center for Ethics, as well as a Bernard Schwartz Fellow at the New America Foundation and a Schumann Center Writing Fellow at In These Times. His first book, Twilight of the Elites, America After Meritocracy, which is about the crisis of authority in American life, was published in June 2012 and became a New York Times bestseller. Emmy-winning Chris Hayes became an MSNBC contributor in 2010 and hosts All In with Chris Hayes at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Hence the timing of this event, so Chris can actually get to work on time. So Hayes is also Chris is also editor-at-large of The Nation and a New York Times best-selling author of A Colony in a Nation. He lives here in New York with his wife and 3 children. And on a personal note, for the younger alums in the audience who may not yet understand the amazing things that them and their classmates are going out to do. Chris and I were former high school Spanish classmates together, and so it's really wonderful to celebrate the successes of those people who you walked the same hallways with and shared the same classrooms with. So thank you both for being here, and we leave it open for discussion. Thank you. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. Oh, and now we just found out this evening that he's also going to be a Hunter dad because his daughter is going to be entering 7th grade next year.
Chris, it's wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you.
We saw each other a few years ago, but I was thinking back when we met, and it was almost exactly 30 years ago. I think you were in my 9th grade class in 1993. It's a long time. We heard your accolades, but I wanted to read one other comment about you. Chris reads everything. So when I would send home a 2-page selection of Locke or Descartes, by the following week, Chris would come knocking at my office door, book in hand, ready to talk about the rest of the text.
Not a lot of people get to do that, and I think I've always been a really curious person. I think that the 9th grader who was hounding you after class because I had gone through all the Locke and Descartes readings, sort of never went away. And I've been very lucky to find work that satiates that. But I think the spirit, again, I think that spirit of inquiry and curiosity a lot of people have, and many people don't have the good fortune to have it encouraged and cultivated and identified as valuable. I think that natural curiosity is actually quite widespread among people, and I think one of the job of educators and good teachers is to cultivate that. So I feel really lucky, and I really feel profoundly privileged to do what I do because, you know, I do feel like I'm learning every day. And my favorite thing that happens to this day in my job, whether it's on the podcast or on the show, and it probably happens a little more on the podcast because the show is a little more, we're operating under more intense time constraints of live television, so things are more structured, and is just to learn a thing. It's not that hard, but also not everyone can do it. Like, it's just a kind of weird and quirky skill. It doesn't have any connection to, like, there are people who are exceedingly bright and brilliant who are not great TV talkers. There are people who are like not that bright and are very good TV talkers, and yeah, there's okay, all right. Yes, there's a fair amount. I mean, so talking on TV is a strange skill, and I now on the other side of this, I can identify when we try someone new. I'm like, oh, that person can do it, and I think that was basically what happened. Was I started talking on TV, and the producers were like, oh yeah, he can talk. We call them, in the industry, we literally say, he's a good talker. That's the term. You're like, oh yeah. Like, what about, we're looking for a lawyer on this story, or this reporter. Like, what about this woman? She's from, I was like, oh yeah, she's a good talker. Like, can we book her? So I was just a good talker. And then one of the other things that's weird about television is it tends to be a very risk-averse medium, which something that I used to think was like infuriating, and now I understand a little more as I've gotten on, just because live TV is a very delicate thing, and it's weird, unnatural time conditions and things like that. So when someone demonstrates they're good at it, they get booked and booked and booked and booked and booked.
And I guess I was imagining, like, oh, you know, you must have had plans for what this show was going to look like, and then, you know, Trump happened, and
what does happen is, oh, that show really didn't rate last night, or oh, you guys really fell off in the final quarter. What did you do there? Oh, we did X. Oh, maybe don't do X. Now, some of that, again, this is like, it ends up being, you know, it took me a very long time because I think I went into it in this very almost like computational way where I was going to like figure this out in some empirical sense, like what the relationship was between these topics or how, and really what it ends up being is like touch and craft and art and not science. So I've just gotten feel now, like if there's a story I want to do that isn't naturally a thing that you're going to bring the audience is going to bring attention to, or be like, oh, I have to hear about this, then I have to figure out that problem. I can't just like put it out there. So we all have to deal with these incentives. What we've never had to deal with is the thing that Fox had to deal with, which was the thing the audience wanted was just to be told a flagrant lie. I mean, just a plain, not like Hillary Clinton is corrupt, like, which is like you could, you know, make an argument that word has enough push and pull in it, right? What's corrupt, right? No, they want to be told that like just an empirically, verifiably wrong thing, and also like a libelous thing, like not just a wrong thing, but like a legally actionably wrong thing. And so they had this crazy moment, right? That like the idea that like capital H history can happen at any moment, and that you can go from like your normal life, you know, as a computer programmer in Kyiv, like hitting the clubs and wondering about whether like you should see that woman for a fourth date, to like just holding an AK. Like that's the reality of that is now embedded in how I think about the world in a way it just definitely was not 15 years ago.
Hi,
Right.
Marge Kolb, 78, 79, last all-girls class. I can't take credit for that. But I worked
I love
at
the polarized applause.
I-
That was amazing.
I have 3 sons, and I think they all took the test for Hunter. So I worked at the Alumni Association for 11 years, and I always had to defend boys to a lot of the older ladies. But there was a time and a place for that single-sex education.
Totally, yeah.
And the alums from those eras were just fantastic at the stuff they did. Which Trump thought were all faked, But my father was an immigrant from Hungary who had to come during the Hungarian Revolution, and he came here under asylum. So I'm a big defender of asylum for people that need it, And I also go where my grandmother's buried and see her mother buried with 3 or 4 of her kids. So I'm also a believer in vaccinations,
Yes.
So there are things that still we carry down from those older generation, like I do, and I talk to my kids about this stuff all the time. But my brother and sister are right-wing nut jobs. My oldest son has some anti-vaxxer, because he reads certain things.
That's what I'm telling
and
you.
I have to keep sending him other things to try, So I was not political in college or high school. And I mean, I was a kid when Watergate happened, so I knew about it, because that was huge news when I was a kid, but not political at all. Now I'm like a politics junkie too much. Thank God I follow the Mets, and I do I have dogs, and so I do some other things, because otherwise I'd be crazy. But I'll tell you one more funny thing. We bought land. We bought property upstate. We bought property. Well, the thing was about why they don't ask better questions. But we bought property upstate, 2 hours upstate. There's people that had Biden and Trump signs in their yard. So
let me
like
answer the
too.
second thing first. I agree that people do change. I mean, I was saying sort of somewhat jokingly, but people do change, and actually it's a great thing that people do change.
Well, before I wrap up, I just want to comment that it is just astonishing to me that whatever generation you graduated in, whatever your occupation, wherever you live, whatever your gender, it is amazing to me the connection amongst people who graduated from Hunter and how people have the same experience. Chris and I talked about the fact that, we shared the most influential point in our lives was being at Hunter, and like almost you're all shaking your heads. I mean, it was the most important time, and it was just, it's just incredible how much we all are bound by this place. But I'd just like to say, a huge thank you to both Chris Hayes and Irving Kagan for being here this evening. Also to all of you for being here at this event. Though we are concluding the academic and fiscal year, this is not the end of the Alumnae and Alumni events for the summer. Later this month, on June 24th, in Chicago. Hello, Chicago. Mari and I and Lorna and Lisa back there, we're all going to be in Chicago at a reception there. July 13th, there's a networking event for young alums. That's for those who graduated within the last 10 years. Please do check the website and your emails for announcements on future events. Also, check the cards that are circulating for the QR codes. There's an opportunity to still register for reunion, also to donate, and to purchase merchandise. So thank you all. Please join us outside for refreshments. Thank you for being here.